district to settle a contract that is going to make our schools the best schools that St. Paul students deserve. We are prepared to strike if need be to ensure that that happens. We are seeking mental health supports for our students. We've all been through the last few years and we know that these years have been wearing on us. The children are coming to school, their needs for mental health supports are not being met, and those kids need everything that we can do for them. They need the mental health support that they deserve in order to be ready to learn. So not a single educator that I've spoken to wants to strike. We don't want to be on the line. We want to be in our classrooms with our kids, but we are very much prepared to do what we need to do to ensure that our students have what they need to learn. We need them to have small class sizes. We need to ensure that they have recess guaranteed to them and access to fresh air. We need to ensure that they have the mental health supports that they need to be ready to learn and thrive in every single building in St. Paul Public Schools. And we will make sure that we are ready to walk the line until we have that in writing. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. All right.
Hi, I'm Leah Jordan, and I'm here representing the Educational Assistant Bargaining Unit. If the last 2 years have shown us anything, it's that our students' needs have been increasing, and it is now more important now than ever for us to stand up and be the voice for our students, advocate for them for what they need. Now's the time to stand up and fight and not stop until we get the things that our students need to be as successful as possible in our schools. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Danielle. Mariah. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Mariah Roberson Moody. I am the co-lead for the ESP chapter of MFT. And today we filed for our intent to strike. ESPs cannot take the wages that we make anymore. We cannot keep going on with the way things are. We can't accept status quo. Our schools need a change, our students need a change, and our staff need a change. It's time for Minneapolis Public Schools to start investing in our educators so we can start investing in our schools and the futures of our students. These supports are needed, and these things are mandatory for things to change and for things to get better for our students. So like people have said here tonight, we do not want to go on strike. Many people do not want to walk the line, but we are prepared to do what we have to do to show that we are serious about the demands that we have put on the table because we need things to change. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Daniel Perez. I'm a school social worker at Green Central Bilingual School and a bargaining team member of the MFT 59 teacher chapter, and I'd like to share the following remarks. Just over a year ago, the MFT 59 chapter first met with members of MPS leadership and began this current round of contract bargaining in hopes of laying the foundation for big and needed changes in how we function as a public school system. Today, however, the teacher chapter joins the ESP chapter and carries forward the voices of thousands of MFT 59 members in filing our intent to strike. We do not file this lightly, but after countless actions, numerous bargaining sessions, and multiple mediation sessions, all resulting in little to no movement to the majority of our locals' contract proposals, we find ourselves running out of options. As we recognize that a strike is an action of last resort and will continue to work tirelessly to reach a tentative agreement for our membership's approval, we also recognize that the frustrations, disappointments, and anger over the last few rounds of bargaining are pushing us to this point. The time is now to to deliver the safe and stable schools our students, families, and staff deserve, whatever it takes. We are quickly reaching our breaking point. We are losing dozens of highly quality educators whom we seek to retain. We are losing hundreds of students who seek educational experiences that MPS is failing to offer. We are losing faith in our district, our state, and national leaders to deliver on the many promises they made to our commitments through our public education and our public schools. We are losing so much, but one thing is clear: we are not giving up. We are no longer interested and willing to bargain with ourselves before accepting what little MPS offers. They're cheering. Woo! The time is now for MPS to invest seriously in our schools and our roles within them. The time is now for the legislators at the state capitol and in Washington, D.C. to fully fund our public schools, and for MPS to join us in demanding nothing less than that. The time is now for us to renew our collective commitment to the power and potential of a well-funded, student-centered public education system. And finally, the time is now for the district to accept our demands and together with us work to deliver the safe schools and stable schools our students, our families, and staff deserve, whatever it takes, and we're ready. Thank you.
We can open up for questions if anyone has them.
Somebody from St. Paul?
Any of us. St. Paul.
Yeah.
So, we watched the debate over closing schools in St. Paul. They're talking about a $40 million budget deficit for next year. Parents are, are anxious about their kids being out of school. Do you expect support for this if schools close their doors and kids are back at home next week? Or in March, I should say.
Yeah, I thank you for the question. We have heard from the district they have a projected budget deficit. We haven't seen any math or rules on that. I think that's a question that could be for them. And we think we do have support. We've been hearing from a lot more parents. We had a great turnout last night at public comment for the school board in support of our union and what we're doing here. So we're feeling pretty good about that at this point. We know it's going to be a sacrifice, but it's a short-term sacrifice for the things we know that our students are going to need for the long term. And we just cannot we cannot step away from that right now and let that happen.
Leah, what do you say about when you say it's a short-term sacrifice? And Greta, I don't know if you want to jump in on this too, but we're still, I guess, in a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot for families, even if it's short-term. There's been a lot for families to take on in the last couple of years. How do you respond to that? Because that is a big kind of thing out there for families. They're kind of wondering about that. Even if they support you, there's still this kind of thing. Oh, this has been a rough 2 years.
It's not going to get any better if we do nothing. So the alternative is for our students to continue to not receive the education they deserve, for enrollment to drop, and we are offering systemic change. That is what we have on the table right now. There is so much at risk, and we are doing something about it. So we're saying our district is like, we can't afford this. We're saying you can't afford not to invest in our kids right now.
Can you explain for the parents out there, our viewers, you've got 10 days now, what needs to happen? What do you need to see from the district to avoid this happening? And when does that 10 days go? Is it business days? Does it include weekends? What's next?
So we're planning on March 8th, and Sean, feel free to hop in here. We're planning on March 8th, so we're hoping that by March 7th we can reach some agreements. There is plenty of time for the district to make the changes that our students need and deserve, but we're no longer in a place where we're going to allow this to happen to our kids anymore. So we're taking this very seriously, and we need them to start taking this seriously as well.
What specifically are the big sticking points right now?
Mental health supports, smaller class sizes, a living wage for our hourly workers, just to name a few. At the end of the day, we are hemorrhaging great educators. When I grew up going to Minneapolis public schools, and a lot of these people who went to St. Paul public schools, we knew who we'd have in second grade. We knew who we'd have in fifth grade. Our kids can no longer count on that. We can't fill the positions we have. We are hemorrhaging educators left and right. I just had a teacher 2 days ago say, I'm not even giving my 30-day notice. I don't care if they take away my license. I can't keep doing this. We are doing so much more with so much less. And those at the top who are running our schools like a business with a corporate top-down model continue to do so much less with so much more. We are not going to stand for it for one more day.
Do either of you have any insight, or is this a district question about, there's major concerns in Minneapolis with regard to not having kids in school and safety. In St. Paul, too. There are big concerns from parents in both of those cities. Do either of you have any insight on what would happen? Would schools stay open for kids? Is there anything that you guys know about?
So the district they can stop this tomorrow, for starters. And right now, my son is a Minneapolis public schools student. He sits in a lunchroom when they don't have a sub for him. That's not safe. We are demanding safety and stability for our kids. That means physically, emotionally, so that they can not only be in school but receive a high quality education. So we're going to do whatever it takes to ensure that that happens. And we have community wrapping their arms around us right now and our students. We are not going to let anything happen to them. We are doing this for them and alongside our families, alongside our kids.
In St. Paul, we were here 2 years ago, which is in and of itself inexplicable. And the kids were fine. Plans are in place. That is not something that but to mirror what Greta said, this can end. The ball is in our district's courts. We don't have the same contract. We each have, but we do share a lot of the same values. They're looking for class size language. We have it. St. Paul Schools wants to take it away. They're looking for better mental health support language. We have it. The district is looking to limit it. We also would like a living wage for all of our lowest paid. They don't have a living wage. A living wage. We're looking for a wage increase, sure, but a living wage to begin with for the people who work with our children. This cannot go on. These are the types of things that we need to shift, and we need to shift them now. So, again, it is going to be something that might happen. We're going to work hard to make that not happen in our respective districts. And really, at this point, we didn't have to get here really at all if our districts were doing what they're supposed to be doing to begin with. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I do. So I'm Sean Layden, the president of our Education Support Professionals Union. And the status quo right now of folks making $24,000 a year to start and having high turnover and high vacancies. At the beginning of the year, we had over 200 vacancies of those positions that are supposed to provide essential supports to students. Right? Small literacy groups, small numeracy groups, social emotional learning, on top of all the physical supports that our folks provide. That's incredibly important in relational work. And it's incredibly intimate with a student who you might be toileting, or you might be feeding, or you might be providing occupational therapy assistant work to. And for our students to have to learn someone new, have a new person to be introduced to do that incredibly important work, because we can't find the resources to pay our hourly workers a living wage, yet we're spending our federal dollars that have been given to us on HR consultants and data scientists. This is a matter of priorities, and the district can stop this today. Superintendents can pick up the phone and say, let's make this work. You do not get the vote results that we saw. You do not get hundreds of hourly workers signing up for their union to pay union dues, to vote yes to strike, to forego pay if things are okay.
That's right.
If we could just work it out. We need deep fundamental change, and our district leaders are the ones who are in the way right now. We've been very clear at the bargaining table. What we saw in mediation yesterday for ESP is unacceptable, and it is more of the same.
I know who you are, but can you step up and say it spell for us? Sure.
Leah Van Dassor, Leahvan, capital Dassor, President, St. Paul Federation of Educators.
Greta Callahan, Greta and president of the teacher chapter of the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers, Local 59.
Yeah. I have one more question. And anyone from St. Paul too. Can you speak to how many teachers are losing and how many students are losing? Because we're hearing about declining enrollment, we're hearing about teacher retention. Can you quantify some of that?
Yes, we've lost 645 teachers from my chapter alone in the last year and a half. 120 of those were educators of color. That is an emergency. We need to invest in our schools, our students, and those who are closest to them right now, because no one is going into this profession either. Our students, like Sean said, have to have relationships with the people in front of them. We cannot continue to allow this to happen. We also cannot continue to allow outsourcing of a lot of the things we're asking for, like mental health supports. It is not the same when you have someone coming in for an hour a week to work with students instead of licensed professionals, licensed school counselors, licensed social workers who are in the buildings full-time, who our students know and love. It is imperative that they make these changes now because we cannot afford to lose more teachers and education support professionals. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Sean, do you know how many ESPs we've lost and students?
I can't speak to a specific number. What I can say is that we have consistent turnover, and we can follow up with numbers if you need something specific.
In St. Paul, we lose on average, at least over the last 3 years, about 200 staff members a year in our education part of our staff, and that is based on what we know come back in, that we have to hire every year. Like MSP, in Minneapolis-St schools, we also had many vacancies this school year, and they still aren't filled. They're still hiring people even now, and people are leaving. It's just an exodus of people leaving, and they didn't even fill what was missing at the beginning of the school year. So this is a crisis in general. We are looking to attract people who want to work with children and young adults, and that doesn't happen when you treat people with the disrespect that we've been treated with over the last few years in education. So this is all part of the same big picture of how this is going to have to change.
How many people will be involved in this job action May 8th in your district?
March 8th?
Yeah.
Well, possible. Well, as many as 4,200 people who could be members of who are members and could be members of the educational assistants, the school and community service professionals, and the licensed staff.
And how about Minneapolis? How many total?
About the same. We've lost so many people, so that number is fluctuating, but about 4,500. Yeah.
All of this is happening too while we have this $7 billion budget, and I've heard, or that's a surplus, I should say, and I've heard people bring that up. How does that play into this conversation?
It's time to invest some of that money into our schools. We shouldn't be begging to be fully funded. This is wrong. We're robbing our students of childhoods, of the education they deserved by not investing in them. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now at the legislature is mixed up priorities. We have an unemployment insurance bailout that is sailing through the legislature right now, $2 billion, more than the chamber asked for. And we've got schools that are starving for funds across the state of Minnesota. And so it's an excellent question. It really crystallizes what is the problem here. We are a state of abundance, and yet our elected leaders refuse to fund essential services. And so that has to change. You don't see major urban school districts going on strike. You don't see over 100 school districts with unsettled contracts if everything's okay. And so this also needs to be a wake-up call to our elected leaders in St. Paul. Something has to happen. Something has to change. They need to invest that money in our schools.
I can step in and speak to it. My name is Jeff Garcia, JEFF-GARCIA. I'm a member of the SPFE COPE committee as well as the executive board. And to speak to the impact of the surplus, I'm a newer educator of color. I came in through a non-traditional pathway through St. Paul schools. I'm invested in being a St. Paul educator. This is my adopted city. And when I look at a $7+ billion surplus, I won't mince words. It's a moral failing on the part of this state. We have had frontline workers dying. We have had frontline workers that have had to give up their housing, who have become unhoused. We have unhoused ESPs and educators in both of these districts, St. Paul and Minneapolis, and yet the state is sitting on $7 billion. That is unacceptable as is, and to tolerate it anymore would be a moral failing on our part, and if it means that we need to strike to get these demands met and to wake our districts up to the fact that they need to be caring for our cities and caring for our kids enough to advocate for them, then that is what we are going to have to do.
Thank you. Yeah.
The folder.